It's a little later on Monday morning. My batteries are not working correctly. The charger on this one didn't take, so I've got it running on that one. What did we do so far? We did a couple of activations over here on the right flank of the French army. Obviously alternating sides, and I put the dice next to the French to remind me it's their turn to activate next, because there's no way I can play a whole turn of this in sort of, one session, the way that I play. Clearly you could play, I don't think you can play this game in one sitting. It's a much larger game than it seemed at first. It's not, it's bigger than the musket and pike stuff, and if you blew up the combat system into something like the musket and pike system, which the designer notes go into very, very clearly, that there was some sort of, they intimate that there was some sort of prototype system that was just too burdensome. That was probably much more similar to the musket and pike. And here they've simplified it to a single die roll. One thing we can see is that the system is incredibly violent, at least on the Cav side. We haven't gotten to infantry combat yet, but Cav versus Cav, an entire French command has routed. One of their brigades is routed, and you can see we've also got routing happening on the Allied side as well. So you hit with weak stuff against strong stuff and you might lose everything, at least on the Cav side, which works pretty well as far as I'm concerned. I kind of like it. It's going to clear the table and make things speed up. Now I'm on the French. They have to make another decision as to what they want to activate. To a large extent, the Allies, being on the defensive, are activating in response to the French responses, because I've already got the line built. So, if I start over here and work my way through, that's probably okay. I may end up moving in from the other flank instead. That will work as well. There's just very little reason. Another choice that I would have is to play a delay of game with the French and force the Allies on their back foot here, because I have so many more commands under the French that I could just kind of, that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into a little less detail, well, a lot less detail, I think, on Cav battles at least. We'll come in and take a look at how an infantry battle works out when we get to one. All right, let me get going. Got such a situation. After handling almost everything over on this flank, I did not handle this last cavalry in the reserve line, but all the Allied Cav, or all the Allied forces over here, the French moved Cavalry into place here. This is okay, because this is a support line. If this were to become front line, we'd have a problem, because I would be overlapping these guys. So one of these units would have to do something to move into position. I'm actually planning on doing that, getting the dragoons over to the flank here, or something, or maybe do a swap. Anyway, I did notice something interesting, which is there are different icons on the charge side, not on the dress rank side. Dress ranks is just a dude banging his drum. I think Cav can dress ranks. But on the charge side, there's a differentiation. I'm going to use that. That's going to help me see, at least for the frontline units, which are Cav and which aren't, etc. And I've launched an attack across the line here. I'm going to be crossing a river. There's no disorder for infantry going through the forest, which feels a little weird. Like, I feel like something bad should happen if you're marching through the forest. Just, I don't know. When I think about the problems that I had moving through the forest in, say, Battles of Age of Reason, it just feels like it should disrupt the formation a little bit. Okay. So we're on an infantry attack. Let's get to the rolls for this. Okay, and we've got initial volleys coming in, which we're taking. We look at the terrain chart here, and what is the hex side? Oh, I can't tell. This is a small stream. It is a stream. Small streams are hedges, large or marshy stream. I mean, I've got a river and I've got a stream, and I don't think I can cross the river. The river, I believe, is impassable, although it's not here. So, I don't know. There's no real I don't know what I'm trying to say there. Anyway, so I'm gonna call that a small stream. And we've got a 3 versus a 3. Okay, the stream is going to give a +1 to the defender. So I'm at -1. But this is first fire. The initial volley can be used when it's performed to attack. If a volley inflicts the last... The eligible player declares the use. Firing infantry gets flipped. The defending unit takes a casualty. Yeah, so basically what happens is that. But then I think we still get the attack. Yeah. So we're still at -1. I don't have any leadership here. The allies don't have any leadership there. Do I have anything else to play in through here? Not really. There's no open flank in either side. So we're on the -1 table, which can't be good, but and a 9 is not going to be good. That's an AR. Attacker retreats a hex. The defender may advance. They do not wish to. So this falls back, having fired its initial volley. And now I've got my charge markers separated into 2 sections, which force those into another space. And we'll do a couple more just to get, a feel for the whole, but I definitely don't want to cross the river here. Same thing here. Initial volley. Oh, look, we both essentially fire our initial volley. It doesn't really do anything. It's just an extra casualty. Somebody asked, hey, is this really, that big a deal? And I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's all that much. All right, again at -1. Not the best odds. We get a defender retreat this time. Defender retreats a hex. The attacker must advance. So we'll fall back. This crosses over. We've got a charge here. No follow-ups here. And again, we fire our initial volley. And the weird thing is, if the attacker doesn't do his initial volley, the defender gets to do it. Oh. I really don't know how much impact it has. Okay, and again at -1. Not a great die roll. That's going to be a 1 AR, which means both takes a hit. The attacker first, if not routed, then the defender. Okay, so neither unit's going to be routed because they both have a strength of 2. So I guess we each take a 2 casualty marker because we have a 1 already in place, and put that under ourselves or something. Never sure where to put stuff. And then the attacker is going to retreat, and the defender has the option to advance, which, once again, they're not going to take. So, both sides took losses, but neither side had a unit routed, so no morale checks necessary. This battery's dead. And that's going to put us, flip this over. These guys are in a charge command. They succeeded, obviously. Rolling on the chart. And I'll swap batteries and try to figure out what the allies are going to do. Okay, I think the appropriate thing to try to do here is to try to dress ranks with this command, which is Ramsey here. So, this is new. Let's get over here. And Ramsey is in the front in March, trying to dress ranks. Needs a 1 or a 2. He's not in a firefight. That I think means somebody has to be in a firefight condition to hit that. Again, these things aren't well defined anywhere. Firefight is a particular result from an infantry attack and you kind of need to be able to withdraw a hex in order to get out of the firefight, so dress ranks is appropriate for that, but it's weird because the whole brigade isn't necessarily under firefight. Okay. So we're going from March to dress ranks. We need a 2. We have no bonuses. And we fail. That means we stay in the March order. Which I believe will allow me to do this. 2. Good, not good. Okay, it'll allow me to do this. 2. How much does the stream cost? 3, 4. I don't like that. Let's go 1, 2, 3, 4 to here. And then let's move this like this, I guess. It's definitely not optimal. This unit is not allowed to attack because it just moved into a frontage. This has casualties. I would have liked to have dressed ranks with him for various reasons. I'm going to shift that over here. And now I consider, do I want to make 2 separate attacks or just an attack with this unit? Kind of wiggling my ass out in the air there, which that can't be good. Well, that's life, huh? Okay. Let's try attacking. Let's do it with both. I have to make the decision right now, is the problem. Now, this attack could clear things up, so I'm going to do this one first. That's going to get me on the 0 table for the infantry. There's no support. Open flanks. If the attacker has no open flanks and the defender does have an open flank, increase the attacker's CV by 1 for each of the defender's open flanks. There's 2 open flanks there, so I'm actually at +2. So I'm at big advantages here. Probably didn't need to pull this unit back. You know what? Chicken butt. We're going to just leave him back there because of the positional advantage of them cutting across the line. But wait a minute, something's happened. Oh, unfortunately, there is an index, okay? But there is no breach listed on the index. because that's what we're interested in here. If you recall, there's these breach counters. I believe they work for this, but I have to find them. I'll order stuff. This is not looking good. All right, I'm going to have to try to find me where the breach orders are. Maybe they're in the playbook or something, but yeah. Only applies to fortifications, not river lines. The breach marker negates the effects of the fortification hex side. Yeah. So basically, if I get control of the fortification, I dismantle it. But I can't do that with a river. So he's not this quickly. So yeah. What was I looking at? I just wanted to see if, like, breaking the cordon gives me some advantage where I can keep moving units across into there. So we were looking at a 2 CV advantage. So we're looking at 4 to 2 is +2. That sounds pretty good. I get a 5. That's going to be, for fuck's sake. You look for a firefight marker? And put that between these two. But this is still allowed to attack. So, that has taken a second hit. So it's down to a 1. Which means it would normally be at -1. Open flanks brings it up to +1. And I'm attacking through a flank hex side, so I'm up to the same +2 that I was on the other thing, which could end up disrupting that firefight. The +2, I get a 3, I get a 1 DR. Both units take a hit. This is the third hit for this unit. It's all it can take, which means this takes a second hit. Still in firefight, and this has just routed. I think routes are all men. I don't know if I'm allowed to cross the river, but I am allowed to go there. I could say that's a... See, that's not a stream, that's a river. But if I treat that as the larger stream, I can't look at the other map because it's on the other side of this. So I don't have the opportunity to see if they're the same shit. So this is a Ramsey unit. That was the entire Ramsey command. So now I look here, and we've got a morale of 7 now because of the loss. And we're okay. And that's finished. So we got to see a little bit of infantry action as well. It didn't go terribly well for the French, but it didn't go all that badly. I routed a unit, right? Okay, a whole lot of nothing happened. Basically, the French started just passing with a bunch of their units, or moving them a little bit. We had some movement going on. And the Allies have been doing more or less the same. Although I did move these guys forward as an example. But now, the French, with their larger army, have forced the Allies into a position where they're going to have to activate something they didn't really want to activate. All their support and reserve have already been used up. Now, I have to kind of use up units in the front line. And that will open up opportunities for the French to move, charge, perhaps. They may not get their charge off. And be able to hit the enemy without the enemy being able to strike back on a following turn. I don't think the Allies are going to make any moves forward at this point. Now, the Allies have activated almost everything. They have a brigade here they haven't activated yet, and a few in the center that they haven't activated. So I feel like I can start operating, and I'm going to do so running off here. Now these guys have already gone. They were a support line. But I have Dalencourt here. I mean, I could do a secondary range unit. Why is Rochagnon? I've got them backwards. I wanted them like this. I wanted the leader with that one. Okay. So I'll try to move Dalencourt. I just had them in the wrong order. And I'll match what's on the map over here. So Dalencourt has an activation check or a charge check. And I need a 4. I got nothing special that'll help me there because my wing commander is with a specific unit. That's successful. Remember, zeros are low. So I will move him forward. That's not going to be too exciting. 1, 2. I don't particularly want the density, but I got to be careful because yeah, I'm going to put that there. Technically that would stay underneath. It doesn't really matter. I could order it in a different way. And I'm going to put these two up like this, a couple of English units on the French side. And those are all going to be charges that I will resolve. Got some funky stuff with the villages and whatnot. I figure I'll play this out. Plus we haven't seen a lot of combat. So this unit here, one's facing this way, the other one's facing some other vertex and is not directly behind. So I've got a strength of 3 versus 3. And this is the Nassau unit, which does not have a leader with it. But the town itself gives a +2. That means I'm going to be attacking at -2. That's not great. But I do get my first fire first. And then we get our swing. And we get a nice 1, which is a 1 DR. Both sides take a hit, and that actually routes them. That routes the defender, because the defender takes his hit first. And the attacker is not hit. Is that right? No. No. They're at 2 strength. So they were 3 strength. They've got a hit against them and are now at 2 strength. But a 2 hit just drops them down to a 1 strength, from what I can understand. So actually, yeah, both take a hit, and then the defender's going to have to retreat. That leaves a unit behind who can then cover the frontage as far as I can tell. Except I have an unsecured flank, which means I was not at minus, what was it, -2? I was actually at -3. It's the same result. Wow, that's nasty. Whew. I believe I have an unsecured flank. I'm just looking, I'm like, oh, there's a guy covering my flank there. Doesn't he count? Can we bend the line as we could in other games? Let's see. Yeah, it's flank hexes which are these. So he has an open flank, so it would actually be on that -3. I got very, very lucky here getting this result, but a firefight, which isn't too unlikely, would have been okay as well. I might have wanted to start over here in the center while I have my flanks covered. But then, of course, with a bad roll, that could end up with me having 2 flanks open. I also might have wanted to not move up with 2 units, but move up and leave 1 kind of behind. Kind of beginning to learn the system as to the tricks that you want to play to make it work. I'd still have room to retreat, and I would, because right now this unit can't retreat without disrupting the unit that's in the same hex with it, because the flanks are covered. Yeah, I would have been better off filling the flanks rather than this. Given that, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put these guys like this and spread these guys out. I just think that's better. I should have launched the attack here, but I can't correct that, but I can correct this. Okay, but we got a good result. The Dutch unit, both units take a hit. The Dutch are going to fall back a hex. And we're in place here. Did we put a charge order on Delancod? We did not. He succeeded in his charge. Okay. We'll continue. This is worse. There's breastworks here as well. There weren't here, but there are here. So, and I have to hit this. There's no option. So this is actually also going to be at -3. -2 for the village, -1 for the breastworks that have not yet been destroyed. I got to get another really good roll. Oh boy, do I. I get a DR, defender retreats a hex, and I must advance. Again, because it's a village, things are better covered, so I don't have a problem there. And now I move to here, where these guys are overstacked equally badly to what I was doing, where I thought I was making things stronger by double placing, but I'm not sure I am. It's a weird situation because the line behind prevents an advance, right? But it also causes other issues in terms of that unit losing. And I forgot first fire. First fire should have happened there. Okay. This does not cause any problems because he's covering the flank, actually. Well, no, he's not a unit. He's a casualty marker. This one. Okay. So this fire was done. Now we come here. We do the first fire. And here we're 2 versus 3. We're only at -1 this time. We're getting good rolls. This is a 1 DR. Both are going to take a hit, and then the defender has to retreat. And in this case, the defender is not under another unit. I'll fall back into the village. So he's going to disrupt this unit as well, which is the disadvantage to being double placed. But I would have crossed over the entrenchments if that second line wasn't there. So that kind of helps. This unit, he's got his flank covered by the unit behind him, which means that I'm going to be at a total of -1 on this attack. And the French do not continue their luck. They get an attacker retreat. Oh, we had first fire. Attacker retreats. This will fall back to here, I guess. This isn't going to disrupt this unit because he was on he was on an unsecured flank, so he's actually refusing that flank. And now he moves into position and is at the front, which works really, really, like, it's really advantageous for the attacker to do something like this. But there are disadvantages where the attacker's not able to push his whole line up at once. Nobody routed, and that means this unit is finished. We're to the Allies. I don't think they have much they want to do. They're going to just keep firing off their units that aren't able to do anything. And this battery is running low, but it's not too bad yet. I got to check. That thing's no longer blinking, which is weird, and I had to move the other one because it wasn't charging. This Russia Guyan with the effect of Conti here. I rolled a 9. They still weren't able to get to a charge operation. I want to push them forward, just maybe not as far forward as I'd hoped, because I want to be able to move some of these other lines forward a little bit as well. The main thing is to get some kind of support for these guys as a follow-up. Support, hindrance, I don't know what. We forced nearly all of the Allied lines to be marked finished. I think the only exception is the von Hayden infantry, which is this here, that I really didn't want to activate because it's not behind, it's got a village, but it's not behind a defensive line, and it's in front of the river. It looks like it's got a lot of problems. But the French have been piddling around with stuff back here, moving these guys forward, for example. Now I feel like I can start activating my front line again. It's to my advantage to do my front line first, all other things being equal, but all other things aren't equal. I want to delay and force the Allies to commit to not being able to do anything before I do something. So now, before I move Lux, I may want to move the command up here and see what comes of that. It's going to be a little weird because I've got an artillery hit here, but that means that I can spend 2 movement points. I have to spend an extra movement point to leave that hex, which doesn't really impact me. So we're going to try to make that charge now. This is the Stupa? No, Serbeck. Sorry, Stupa's over here. Okay, so we go over, we look at Sturbeck. I've got a bonus on that, which probably means I need a 5. And I get that, so I'll be getting a charge with them. Now I have a leader involved in here with a charge. This is the first time this has happened. So I'm going to have to look up the leader casualty rolls. Let's take a see how they trigger, because again, everything's kind of new to me. So leaders in combat, leader casualties. So if a leader's in direct command and any unit participates in combat, is in an effective artillery impact hex, then roll a die on a 9. The leader's a casualty. I didn't get an effective there. Was a leader connected with the first guards? I might have forgotten. Yeah, so I should have checked him. So on a 9, Maximilian would have been a casualty from that effective artillery hit. He is not good. But here, when I engage in combat, before I do any route checks, I have to make a check for leader loss, because I do have a leader there. I don't have a leader facing him. I think Churchill has a leader, so I may actually be looking at a leader loss check for both sides. And in fact, depending on how things go, this Serbeck might be hitting some Churchill, and then the guards might be hitting Churchill, which means he might have to make 2 leader loss checks this turn, because 2 different brigades are hitting his brigade. I gotta swap battery. In the course of this, if you recall, I found an artillery unit that didn't get to fire. that forgot to fire before because it's hard for me to see these pieces. This one also was on top and hadn't fired. I'm gonna just roll its fire and put it, I don't know, we'll put it over here just because. So let's see, that was a 2-hex fire. Okay, that'll get me an effective, or not an effective, a hit, which is no big deal. And we were going to put it on this one. It might have been able to cancel off fire or something, but again, I'm having so much trouble discerning what the hell is going on with these different, with the images on the counters. I don't know what I would ask for on this. I didn't remember having this kind of problem with the musket and pike stuff. You know what I think I would rather? I think these images of what they would look like from an above view, the way like if you had tiny minis, you know, would look. I think that's what's causing an issue, whereas maybe in musket and pike or whatever, I don't remember what they showed, what they looked like. They may have looked like a representative of the unit. Maybe I should take a peek at those to see how they looked. But I remember having a much easier time discerning what the units were in that. And certainly I do in things like Great Battles of History. I don't want to see NATO symbols on the counters, okay? That would really spoil it for me. These are prettier, and there's something I like about them, but they're really getting in the way of my being able to understand what the board, you know, the board state and what each unit represents and everything like that. They're really getting in the way there. So I've pushed these guys forward. They're all attacking, and I'll come back. They're going to be at some penalties. Again, crossing the line. These are decent units, but, you know. But on other hands, where I've got artillery hits, they've got an advantage. I've got an artillery hit under this, don't I? Yeah, probably ought to put that on top. Again, I'm never sure where the markers belong. Before I get into that, I pulled out some musket and pike counters, and you can see it's got a single horse on it, or a single man firing, or a cannon. They're all very apparent. Reminds me of the old 30 Years War Quad symbology on them. That worked perfectly fine. It was very easy to tell what units were. I'm finding it difficult to tell what the units are on this system. Sure, this looks more like the battlefield would look if I was floating over it in a balloon or in an airplane. They didn't have a lot of balloons back in this day either. I don't think they were really using them. But, you know, it captures more of that kind of minis feel and whatever, but minis tend to be a little bit larger, even if you're looking at like, I don't know what, the 6mm or whatever. It's a little easier to tell what you're looking at because of the 3D or whatever. Here, I'm just looking at a blur of lines no matter what. And so like, yeah, it makes sense that an artillery I wouldn't notice and would fail to fire it. I think that's that's a drawback that is an artistic choice, but it's hard to believe that some players did not, some of the playtesters did not complain about, I can't tell what the hell the damn units are, you know? There's a lot of us with bad eyesight at this point, and it's not a good idea to make important information difficult to discern. The thing I want to point out is I'm launching this attack here. It is important that there's two units in here because one is covering the flank. If you've got a bend in the line, that's where you need to have your 2 units. Luckily I did that here, but yeah, it's there's just little tricks like that that are not going to be obvious the first time you're playing, and that's why I point them out, is because I realize them and I'm like, well, if I'm just realizing this difference, it may be important to other people. It's an interesting concept. I know with a lot of especially the Civil War stuff that I do, the worrying of, hey, are you being flanked or not? Is your flank covered? Is a very different type of concept, right? You're not necessarily as worried about the amount of troops that are there, so much as, look, is there a zone of control essentially covering your flank? And that's enough to protect you in those games, to give you, hey, there could be a smooth line here. Here, there's something a little bit more explicit, and by doing that, it's making it a little bit more difficult in terms of things you have to remember to do. All right. Going to the die rolling and whatnot, which I'll take off. So I did a couple of the battles. One here ended in a firefight. This one ended up in an attack retreat, where I had to retreat back into one of these fired artillery. Now this one already has a unit in it, so I don't want to disrupt that. But here, my retreat means that I end up on top of the artillery, and I'm going to be screening its fire, just as if I had stayed here. That caused problems because I did this first and lost. Now this fights into here. It's got an open flank. It's crossing the breastworks. So, and it's got an artillery hit. So I was at a net of -3. Got not a great die roll. So I get an attacker eliminated, which means we got a morale check there, and we got a route marker. And now I have to move the routed unit, which is going to disrupt other units. I'm trying to be more clever. I move to this unit and attack here, and that's a successful attack of sorts. And that puts me to still this unit left. Now I didn't want to do this one first because he's got an open flank at this point. So he's actually on the -2 table. I'll make a quick roll for him now. The other one was on the 0 table because I had a covered flank and was hitting an artillery hit location. But I get a pretty good result. That's a 1 DR. That's gonna, these both get their first fire first. I've been doing that. I just, when I'm on camera, it's harder to remember to do it as quickly. But I'm getting used to the effect. So they'll each take an extra hit, and the defender will retreat again. We lost another artillery unit there, and we've got first leader loss checks. Oh, fuck. I completely forgot about leadership. I forgot to add the strength point in, which would have only counted against maybe nothing. Might have counted against, yeah, it would have counted against this guy and that guy. Oh well, I screwed up. The Churchill ones, the leadership would cancel out. No, it wouldn't. Surbeck's, yeah, he's a 1. I read this as 2. That's going to be a route check there. Okay, so first let's do an allied check for, and then for the French. Okay, the French have lost Frequeres here. Now he is the PL line. And I will look to see if I have a named PL general. I do not, I just have general. Okay, it doesn't look like I have any generals otherwise. And so now I get a lousy general in place over here. We'll move him to his F side. I don't know if he gets replaced at this point, but yeah, we've lost our general as well. That's going to impact our route check for this unit, which is a 9, so we're safe. Surbeck is finished. There's the charge, and those are going to go in the back. Novrians are done. For the guards, so actually I had a better chance of activating Surbeck than I thought. Not only did I have the one from the leader, but I had Luxembourg here as well. But the guards had Luxembourg there also. So a 6, they succeeded in their charge, and they're going to also move forward and launch attacks. You can see there's not much room for maneuver here, right? It's linear combat, man. It's not going to see broad sweeping movements at the, around the flanks and whatnot for the most part. If you can get them, that's great. But it's not going to be easy to do. And in general, you're just lining your forces up and pushing up against the enemy. The opportunities that come forward, the capability of reinforcing not replacing, but I can't find the word, man. I'm getting old. Is where I think any strategy is going to be in terms of making sure that you have the proper reserves to handle whatever you're going to need to do. Now, for the French, they just have so many units right now that they've got whatever they need available, at least for quite some time. For the Allies, I think it's a little bit more, they have a little bit more flexibility in terms of, hey, what do I want to put where to reinforce a line or whatever. Most games don't really handle reserves in a way that forces you to use them. I kind of like that this system does. What I found with a lot of war games is just throw more into the line and it'll be better. You throw more firepower, you throw more combat factors in the line in many systems, and you just get better odds, and you end up with better results, and you roll up the line, and you don't really need to keep units in reserve for that. When we start looking at the more tactical games, what I've generally found is that, there's a point where the line is too dense, and that's what this feels like, where reserves are necessary just in the sense of like, you want to make sure you have something to fill in the gap or whatever. But if the line's not dense, you can, extend your lines. You can usually find gaps or whatnot. Whatever you can do, you want as much in the front kind of as you can possibly get. And usually you don't have enough strength points to cover everything that you need. Would this be any different? Yeah, because the units are fragile. So I really do feel like relief, not substitute, relief, relieving a unit. That's the word I was looking for. Anyway, you do want something to be able to relieve that frontline unit, or to reinforce and replace a destroyed unit like happened over here. So the system absolutely is forcing you into making sure that you have reserves. And I don't know if games covering other periods, they don't feel like they handle the idea of he who brings, the depth of reserves is going to get any kind of real advantage. Usually it feels to me like you want to get as much in the front line as you possibly can. Now, in this case, I'm pretty sure that even if you had, so what you'd want to do if you didn't have like an anchor like this river line at the edge of the map, for whatever that's worth, if you didn't have that kind of anchor, you'd want to refuse a flank, and make it hard for the enemy. And you'll see that in some of my GBOH games where one side or the other just ends up, okay, I can't cover everything, but I'm gonna make it harder for the guy who has more troops to make his attack. And I think you'll see that in the Civil War stuff as well, in the Napoleonics, whatever. But so that would still hold, but what doesn't hold in those games is the idea that, like, you want those reserves. You need those reserves. Your forces can't stand without a reserve in place to take their place. Here it's very, very explicit that you absolutely need to. So what did I do? Did I trigger anything? Yes, I have the guards charging. I lost my place as to where I am in the battle. I think I've been fucking up with retreats. If the top unit is forced to retreat, then the bottom unit is behind it. The top unit's unable to retreat and is going to take a heavier loss. So everywhere where I've fallen back, I've been doing that entirely wrong. Instead, I should be doing this, which I'm going to have to correct across the board. So let's take a look at where I had these retreats. These were fine. Nothing funky happened here. Cav can retreat through infantry somehow. This one is one example. Allen Court here. So I would roll a die for that. Subtract the original combat value. The original combat value of this would be a 3. So minus 3, it gets a 1. It would have an ignore retreat. So I would stay here in the front. Let's look for others. This was okay. This was okay. We're coming here. Surbeck. I did not retreat through there. But Nassau, Churchill, I'm sorry. That doesn't look right. Something's wrong here. These Churchills that retreated, it looks to me like they should have made checks. So I'll do them. So this would have been a 3-strength unit. 2, that would be ignore a retreat and take a casualty. That would be his 3rd casualty. He was a 3-point unit. So this unit actually would have routed. And now he does the route through and hits this. Now I've got to worry about possibility of a unit route as well, which might have changed the guard's effect, because this was a Surbeck unit. I'm just going to count this in on the Surbeck attack instead. This one would be the same situation. I'm sorry, on the guard's attack. He's okay. He would ignore the retreat instead of falling back. We come over here. We had a retreat here that I wouldn't have been allowed to make. What happened here? This was a Surbeck. This actually, this was from here, right? No, yeah, I think one of these was from back here. So I have to check that as well. So let me check that Surbeck over there. He would have been ignore a retreat and take a casualty. So instead of this unit being hit, oh no, this was a firefight. No, we're fine there. That came from here, that came from here. Okay. What am I doing here? What's this? What is this shit? I got a guards here that retreated. That was into this artillery space, I believe. So this one had to check. And this unit is not disrupted yet, I think. I don't know. This would have been an original of 4. So he would be a 2. He would ignore the retreat and take a casualty. He goes up to a 3 casualty and stays here. This was a firefight, not a problem. We did the Churchills. I don't know what the hell's going on with those. Why are those both back there? That doesn't seem right. Because one of them was a retreat from here. That would have been this one. We make a check on him. He would be a 3 strength unit. He would ignore the retreat. Okay. These are fine because they were in the village. They were able to retreat. And I think we've covered everything. So Churchill had to make a check to see if he routed. Back on the Sir S move, I'm going to do it on this move instead. But I do need... fuck, I forgot the command point again. Yeah, I'm blowing shit left and right. Okay, let's check the leader, see if he dies. He does not. Let's check the route result. That goes from a 9 down to an 8 for Churchill. He holds. So that's here. And that routed unit is there. The casualties goes away. And yeah, I'm fucking shit up. And it's to the point where I can't really correct things. But I also, don't want to restart or something. These are borderline stuff. Yes, the French got advantages on all those attacks. But on the other hand, they lost out on a couple of advantages elsewhere. I think it's okay. I think it's okay. There are no more British activations or Allied activations, so we go over to the French turn. And I think it's time for me to take a pause because I'm screwing enough up that I'm really kind of stressing out. It's kind of a shame. It's an okay day out, and I feel like I need to start getting outside and doing something. There's no reason I can't do something right now. Like even just a little something, like walk fucking books a block away to the little free library. I have a pile of stuff to return. I just don't know if I can even make it out of the house. It's I've gotten so fucking used to doing absolutely nothing except my shopping trips and my weekly dancing, and that's it. And yeah, I got wood to cut and all kind of stuff. Anyway, one kind of neat thing is, and I view this about my videos at least, stuff doesn't happen perfectly, okay? You get a feel for the struggle that's involved in trying to play one of these newer systems and whatever, something that's new to you. I guess that's, look, if you already know and love the game, you don't need to know that. But in some extent, of course, if you already love and know the game, who cares? You're just watching for an entertainment factor and to see, whatever it unfold or whatever you're trying to do. Sometimes to see my impressions. I don't know. I don't know. The mindset of everybody who watches things. I can think of a lot of reasons. I know that I often tend to watch things that are games that I'm familiar with, just to see, hey, what do other people think of this? And only spottily, but whatever. Because I don't really like watching playthroughs for the most part, or reviews or anything. But if you're trying to see, is this game for me? Well, it can do two things. One, it can give you a warning of, look, there's a struggle involved in getting used to this and not fucking shit up. And you could see I fucked all kind of shit up in DAC as well. But there's definitely a struggle with this, a lot of little pieces. There's a lot that's new, and the stuff that's new makes it easy to forget. And also the fact that, look, you know, the leader's over here. It's hard to remember. I put the camera down, I come back, and I forget the number, the modifier that's added for that. But again, it's relatively minor, you know. Could just mean I got luckier die rolls with the French than I would have otherwise. The combat table is not like the old Avalon Hill table, you know, where, oh look, it's a 1-to-1 attack. I could eliminate either side, or it's 2-to-1. That's totally different. You know, it is a little smoother than those, and so it's not going to be that kind of differentiation. But also the other factor is it highlights mistakes that, you know, you might not otherwise, like, it might sink in a little better as I try to defend the existence of my butchery or whatever. Sure, I would love to play it perfectly, but, you know, that's not going to ever happen. And I think it is of some value to see these kind of things. At least to some of you. Some of you are just like, fucker doesn't know how to play the game. Yeah. I got that, what the hell, on something recently. Border Reavers. Which was somebody like responded to, you know, commented on my review or whatever. Don't listen to this guy. He doesn't even know how to play the game. Yeah. But I still think that my criticism applies. It's a fucking Euro, you know, and that's it. It is a Euro. It's also got its problems. But anyway, beyond that. And it's not suitable for solo, the way I played it. Like, it's got its own solo rules, which, whatever. But I'm not interested in those. I'm interested in looking at how the game plays as an opposed game. And I feel like I get my understanding of how it would play as an opposed game without, you know, without the opportunity for the enjoyment. Like, there would be a different level of enjoyment in certain games that are opposed and that aren't. But I can discern that difference. Okay. So pause time to put things in the bag. Great. Yeah, didn't make my way outside to do anything, as usual. But anyway, we're to the French turn again. And I'm going to want to, I think, just continue along the line with this Salis command next. Again, the Allies are done. They have used all their commands. And I hope I remember to handle retreats properly from now on. I haven't been too careful about. Some of the units have different strength points than other units of their command. So like this guards unit has a 4, this one has a 3. This wasn't something I was expecting. I was expecting each brigade to be pretty much at least units of the same regiment within the brigade to be pretty much the same value, right? Well, it's not guaranteed, and so now I'm beginning to check that. Another thing I'm learning, right? That's not the case with the Salis command, and I've moved forward all but one of the units. That leaves me some retreat paths, but not really, because I got double units here, so only this guy can retreat. But okay, and we'll start launching our fires. Of real interest, though, here, this guy gets the first fire into this, because I've got to hit a different unit with each thing. Just the way I believe it works. And that means that in this particular case, my first fire is going to do actual, real damage. I don't know if it's real damage because this is the stuff that can be recovered, right? Taking away first fire may be more valuable, but I'm hitting this unit up and doing more damage to it rather than, because it's the front unit, it's going to be the unit facing this way. Okay, so the first two hits, one resulted in a retreat here, the other one coming across the river was at a lot of minuses, but I got lucky and got a firefight. I did have a bonus from the artillery hit. And here I have a big bonus from the artillery, but I'm facing a stronger unit. So I'm at -1. I roll an 8. That gets me an attack or retreat. We're going to do the retreat right here. I've got a unit backing me up, but it's not really. It's a flanking unit. So I'm able to fall back on this because of that. So that's kind of cool. Otherwise, I would have to roll on this table. So just trying to show how the retreating works. And actually, the fact that this guy retreated meant I had units with a flanking unit or a refused flank in both cases by the time I got around to actually rolling the combat roll. So in both cases I was making a safe roll as long as nothing, well actually it could fall back to here. That would be still safe because I'm allowed to retreat in front of the unit, I just can't retreat through it. And since I only got a 1 hex retreat, I'm fine. So those are the impacts there. And now I guess I'll move on and do this Reynolds unit. Salis is complete. Berwick's modifier counts in both cases because he's not leading either unit for the combat bonus. So I need a 5, which I do not get here. I could just move forward. What does that do me? I think it does bad for me because it means first fire could come to the opponent if they get a charge result. They can't attack me because I don't have a charge, even if they get an activation. But I don't think I want to march up into position against them. So I think we'll just call them finished. The only advantage to moving them forward would be to give cover to this next unit, Ballarul or Reeb. Either one of those units could get an advantage out of that. Do I want to push one forward? Right into that artillery. That doesn't sound like a good idea. So yeah, I'll just call this, we're done with that. And we'll move down the line. Now, here, I want to wipe out this gun. There's no question about that. So yeah, well, let's see if we get the effect. I've got a leader there, so that puts me to a 5. And I don't get activation with him, so again, I'm going to pass with him and not push him forward. Am I going to push one of them forward just to cover? Might not be a bad idea in this case because Reeb looks like he's relatively poorly aligned. And does that mean I need to move 2? I can't really afford to move 2. Like I could cover one of my flanks with a unit, but just one. Yeah, if I do this, right, and this, I have this flank refused now, heading down into here, and now the Reeb unit can go. Of course, it does mean I'm stacked, and that's potentially a problem, but I don't think, but it isn't really a problem right now because the unit underneath is not actually in the same hex. And, you know, you can march around right on the front, which is kind of weird. But the muskets are such short range. Okay, and that means, oh, we already marked him. That means we'll go over to the Reeb unit, which is the last of my frontline units. Everything else I do is just going to be positioning, because nobody has the right to move up into the front at this point. Okay. And he's just going to be a 4. I'll try to charge him as well. I get that, so we'll figure out what we want to do with him. Did we even really mean this? Well, I wouldn't have moved forward if I didn't. The problem, of course, is I move a unit up here, I move a unit up here. These two could go into the artillery hit zone, but then I'd be able to at least take out that English gun in the front, and I think that's not a bad idea. Even though I'm crossing a stream and all kind of problems, I'll be refusing the flank. So what I'll do is this, and let's put the good unit on top this time. Flank refused on the other side. I'll roll the combats. What am I facing? Am I facing a leader or something over here? These are all this unit, and it's not Hanover, it's Van Hayden or whatever. Now, I have a situation here that's a little different than what we've seen. I had attacked here and I was successful. So I've made my way through there. I'll leave the artillery hit up here just to help. Got lucky. Here, I made my attack and I got another lucky roll. Over on the -2 table, I got a 1 DR. I've positioned the casualties here. This unit is in a village. It could take another casualty in order to hold its position. I haven't done that before because I was double stacked and said, screw it, I'll fall back. But here it would make some sense, except that second casualty, or third casualty, would wipe this unit out. So we will take our retreat instead, giving the hex over to the French. And what amounts to the final attack from the French point of view was a failure against Lair here. It's really odd, you know, the fact that I succeeded in these two is a huge, huge benefit. And, you know, I'm cracking through over here too, so we're really kind of beginning to get some movement over here. Now, we've crossed this Lair boundary, but that's okay. This is the dividing line here. So yeah, I'm still in my proper lane in terms of sectors, wings, whatever you want to call them. So now all that's left for me is basically I look at every French command that I haven't already flipped and make a decision, hey, do I want to reposition him in some way? Because these are all going to be either in the support. I think I've used up all my reserves. So I have support line stuff basically running from Rumsdorf all the way over to the left, Rumsdorf being over here. About half of Rumsdorf is available. So I'll just make that decision on those support line units to decide, do I need to move them forward and whatnot. Now, I didn't really get the opportunity here, and I think I fucked up actually, by not doing something proper with the Nassau Cavalry. I could have probably figured out some way to open up lanes with it. It's going to get disordered. That's okay, I guess, but it's pretty close to the front line at this point. And in fact, I probably want to shift it to the front. These routed units are going to come through and cause problems. Fair enough. You know, I'm learning the system, right? But I don't want to make that same mistake over here. And by the way, the Allies have the same problem with, like, I could have probably done something to shift forces there. However, these attacks came after, but, you know, my setup may not have been as wise as it maybe should be. But in this case, I'm going to move Harborville. I'm going to do this 1, 2, 3, 4, like this, opening up some space for those guys to retreat. And I don't have to make any kind of command check to do that. I'm still maintaining all my brigade requirements in terms of things being consistent. And I don't know if I trust that battery's not charging. One thing I have to be careful of is the guards unit is now here. So this line, because the front is, you know, largely straight here, there's no curve that I have to worry about. Like, again, the way the rules are written, I had the impression that it would be, you know, the flow of the map would determine whether or not you're closer to the front. This is really not handled particularly well as far as I'm concerned. But I think I wouldn't be allowed to say move these units up into there, because then they would be lateral with the guards unit. That's a very clear case. The harder cases is here where the line bends and goes off in a different direction. And now what do I do? You know, am I working off of a slice going back from, you know, the linear formation, which is what I want to do, or am I going still straight on the hex grain and just assuming that, you know, there's a certain direction to the battle, and I don't worry about the fact that there's a flank over here that's curved. I think I'm going to work with the curved flank as best as I can. Anyway, it's no big deal. I don't particularly think I want to do anything with these units. That gets me down here. Thierge. Can't do anything with him because of this Reynald unit here. Again, this is my feeling. Now maybe I could countermarch this a little up in that direction, and that might not be a bad idea because it looks like there's an opening there. What is this? This is a Reeb unit. I have to worry about this. These guys, I feel like they're behind here. I don't really have to worry about that. Now, one way I could do it to try to disambiguate, and I think this kind of makes sense, is I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away from an enemy unit here. 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes away from an enemy unit here. I think I actually have to conform both to this and to this because I'm the same distance away, which means I have to stay behind anything that's on this line, but I think the Reeb unit is on this line, okay? So I think these guys are okay where they are, and I don't have to do shit about them. So I'm going to march these Thienge units and get them like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and get the whole command over here, because this feels like I've got more of a gap here, or an opportunity, either one, where I want to have some infantry in place there. Probably because these guys all didn't do shit. And I think that's it. I think that gets to the end of my brigade movement, which means we're going to go to the end of turn side of things. Yeah. If both people pass consecutively, oh, fuck. All right. So I had this situation, I'm sure. But I could have fiddled units around, even if it's just, 1, 2, I think, and avoid a pass. So, yeah, I'm not going to worry about that right now. Nobody had the intent. Well, obviously the English would be perfectly happy with passing, right? Because they just want the battle to delay. And if it gets to like 4 p.m. something, the game is over. But, with a victory for them. But the French weren't going to pass, and they had plenty of units they could have fucked around with and done a little bit of movement. Even if you say, I couldn't do this, okay, but I could do this. All right? So I could jitter my units around in such a way that it avoids a pass. It's also not clear, like, I don't have to move, I don't have to combat, I don't have to do these other things. So it's not absolutely clear that I even had to move a unit. I think you have to directly declare that you're passing for a pass to actually happen. And we're essentially in that position right now. So we go to the next major step, which is routed unit movement. And that's down here. They move its full movement allowance along the path of least resistance towards the designated retreat edge. Least resistance is kind of weird. What does that mean? They will move through friendly units, creating casualties for infantry or flipping cav units to disordered if there's a choice of 2 hexes that still provide... Okay, so I have to go to direct path if possible. But I follow least resistance as much as possible. So this guy, runs off the map. Great. He's gone. This guy does not have a really good option. He goes to here, and that'll take first fire away from this. It would actually cause a casualty, but those casualties are recoverable. But taking first fire away is not. This guy, his least resistance is through to there. And that disrupts some cav. I'm going to want to recover these units. That's going to be a pain in the ass. For the French, I think I got all the allied ones. For the French, going to have to open up a pathway for him, although he's got a while to go. This guy, no problem. This guy's going to cause issues. Is that cav? Yes, yay. It's not a major issue. Now, I think it just disorders cav. I don't think it will route disordered cav. If it routes disordered cav, I would run through a different way. But instead, I'll go this way, 1, 2, and then I have to keep running, and I'll put these in the same space. And that means I only have 1 counter to worry about at this point. Okay, so that's route movement as best as I can determine. And now we go to what I think is a purely mechanical clean up and reset, remove artillery impact markers. Okay, that's these guys. Got a bunch of them. I hope I haven't hidden any under other units. Oh, these flip over. So they only have 1 more turn. This may be part of the cleanup, but I think it makes more sense to do it during route movement, if I recall to do so. Some of these aren't going to be a problem anymore. Got a way home. So all these artillery markers. Got an effective here. I think that's the only one that... Okay. Did I throw an artillery in there? No. Okay. Flip artillery to their front side if they're on their fired side. And all finished brigades get moved up. Here's where the routed markers get moved. It makes more sense for me to do it as I move them, if I can remember. And then the turn marker moves forward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unflip all the artillery if I can find it all. It should be easy. Fired is easier to see than otherwise, but I'm on top of some artillery, which is going to make things more complicated. And then all of these counters get unflipped as well. That's kind of a pain in the ass. I'm going to do it, but there's other games where I've done this kind of thing that use a mechanism of, look, one side is one color, one side's the other, and on odd turns, finished meat is one side, and on even turns, it's the other. I don't want to fuck around with that, but I could see using that as kind of a simplification to having to do all this mechanical work. Some time back, I had one of these artillery, and I think I tried to make up its fire, rolled it, and it didn't have an effect, or maybe it just had a regular hit rather than effective fire. Well, actually, neither of these artillery had fired during my turn. They were both still face up, I think. I don't know. And then I've got, like, you know, places where there's artillery under stuff, like here. That should only be on the French side. I hope I got them all. I don't know for sure. It's going to be troublesome. For limbering artillery, you use these little markers. I don't think artillery is going to move around much. I kind of get the feeling. So historically what happened was there was an artillery bombardment before the battle starts, and then you get this one important fire. The artillery bombardment that happens before the battle starts isn't going to do shit by the battle's rules, by the game's rules. So whatever that does is just a bunch of sound and fury. But in terms of in terms of later actions, I think it's going to be pretty hard to utilize artillery. This is not Napoleonic artillery, but with the density of the forces, it's also not 30 Years' War artillery. It's like, for the most part, it looks like the artillery is just not going to have channels to fire through. Now, those might open up as the battle continues, but at this point, I kind of think the artillery is going to just be mostly shielded or wiped out by the initial attack. Defensive artillery sucks because if you want to use it, it's like use once and then you get hit, unless you're lucky in a location like here where the enemy isn't able to actually launch an attack on you, in which case you get additional firings. The artillery doesn't do anything to prevent enemy units from attacking. I could see it kind of disrupting formations and making it so that they aren't able to attack. It doesn't really do that. All it manages to do is reduce, well, it would succeed with effective fire. But with regular fire, all it really does is cost them an extra movement point. So you're not going to be able to pin the enemy in place with artillery fire or anything like that, unless you get a very lucky shot. And at 2 hexes, you know, okay, there's a 30% chance, but I found it more useful to drop firepower, you know, where I've got an 80% chance, where it's just going to give me a bonus if he does happen to attack through there. There was something about if you get effective fire at 1 hex, I think it spills over into the next hex and causes more issues. I don't remember the exact rules about that. Now that I'm talking about it, I remember something. If a hit or effective impact is, if an artillery score is effective at range 1, it gets a yellow impact at range 2 adjacent to the effective. Yeah, so, you know, I could slow down the unit behind it, but at the range that this battle starts, that doesn't do anything. Anyway, time to do these. Then I'll come back and I guess I'll load this one up. Okay, I didn't use the phase marker at all. We moved this to here. I'll put these up here to remind me it's the beginning of a new turn. couple observations, not so much about what's going on the map, but over here. First one, I find it kind of hard to distinguish these as well, even though they got the NATO symbols on them. The Cav and infantry, again, it doesn't really jump out in quite the same way. They try. I mean, they put these little triangular pennons on the Cav and everything, but it's all, I don't know, there's a certain dullness to the color. It's just not jumping out with the symbology to help me tell, hey, is that infantry, is that Cav? Again, this may just be my eyes going so bad, but also even the leaders. So I had this guy face up. He should have been like this. He's not. That's fine. You know, I think that's because I got confused with him when he was like this and had an F on him, that it looked a lot like this, and I saw Kalis with an F, and I thought that was the Kalis unit, and I think I unflipped him because of that. No big deal. Doesn't really get in the way of anything. The leaders themselves, I kept them aligned with their units. That's not really necessary. Each leader is going to get an action on the next turn, and can basically move around throughout his wing however he likes. So there's not really a big deal with that. So aligning them with a particular unit at this point is not that important. Once you're done with the brigade activations and whatnot. The charge markers, though, remain. And so all these units are now in charge orders, which means if I want to change orders, I have to use this chart instead of this chart. And you can see going from charge to march is not easy, but dress ranks is, well, comparatively, right? And if I'm under charge, I'm forced by, what is it? By this, to actually march forward and attack. So, you know, the momentum of the attack continues, and that's very similar to the musket and pike series there, and to the game that I think was the progenitor of this idea, although who knows, you know, which is Richard Berg's 1066, Hastings 1066, which had a very much like a musket and pike type order system. This one is a little lighter, just like the actual combat is lighter. And I feel like the order system works fine for what we're talking about. The lightening of the actual combats, I'm thankful for it at this point. There's a lot going on, and yeah, I think even though at first I had this, maybe they could come up with an optional, you know, give us that whole combat system. At this point, I'm like, yeah, I don't want that. This is enough. This is enough. I'm getting a good enough picture, and I'm doing plenty of work, you know. So yeah, the charge orders have to stay because of that. The leadership, not so much, and any lost units have to stay there until the entire brigade routes, whenever that may be. Other than that, yeah, you know, what are we seeing? I don't know. It's not really clear to me how well it's going at this point. Like, usually I have a pretty good idea. The fact that the French lost a brigade on the very first turn feels painful, but it was some kind of crappy dragoons that, you know, maybe they blunted the edge of these guys. Oh, that was another thing. So I was wondering, hey, why aren't these guys under charge? I know they didn't have to be. They only attacked units that were already adjacent to begin with. And then they had follow-up charges, which is why you've got somebody all the way out here. But, yeah. So, and then this guy, is this guy under charge orders? I don't think so. He's too far back. Asphalt. He's under charge orders. How about that? Oh, they all got repulsed. That's why. Okay, so yeah, they're there's a potential target there even if I don't change orders. And they're probably going to want to dress ranks and try to fix that problem. Does it make a difference if you're Cav or infantry? Not really. Dress ranks with Cav brigade from charge gives a bonus, so Cav has an easier chance of reforming. Okay, that makes sense. So there we have it. And up this goes, and then I'll give you a, I guess I'll start the next turn with a, hey, what's happened so far? But it's so muddled, I am not going to have a great view of it.